Thank you, Joe. It was far more than any APOS member needed to know about me. Frank Costenbader and his first disciple, Marshall Parks. I'm not a member of the Costenbader Society, but I am envious of all of you who are. We salute these two men who hacked their way through the uncharted forests of children's eye disorders from the 1940s forward to provide us with paved pathways of treatment protocols. So we should erect statues of them. Our story today begins by recounting an event from antiquity which occurred in the first century Judea under the Roman Empire. The therapist was a Jew who spent his entire childhood and adult life on the western shore of the Sea of Galilee. After being chased out of Nazareth, he lived with Simon Peter in Capernaum. 3 times a year, he walked 70 miles from Capernaum through Samaria to Jerusalem in Judea to fulfill the obligations of a major Jewish feast. On this occasion, he was in Jerusalem, a half-mile south of the Temple Mount, near a pool built in the 8th century BC, the ancient city of David. 12 months ago on a pilgrimage, I walked the ramparts of those walls to see this spot and relive the event. A 16th century painting by Sebastiano Ricci depicts the event. We see the therapist performing the therapy, surrounded by disciples, Pharisees, and assorted onlookers. John chapter 9. As he passed by, he saw a man blind from his birth, and his disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" Jesus answered, "It was not that this man sinned or his parents, but that the works of God might be made manifest in him. We must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. Night comes when no one can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world." As he said this, he spat on the ground and made clay of the spittle and anointed the man's eyes with the clay, saying to him, "Go, wash in the pool of Siloam," which means sent. So he went and washed and came back seeing. The neighbors and those who had seen him before as a beggar said, "Is not this the man who used to sit and beg?" Some said, "It is he." Others said, "No, but he is like him." He said, "I am the man." They said to him, "Then how were your eyes opened?" He answered, "The man called Jesus made clay and anointed my eyes and said to me, 'Go to Siloam and wash.' So I went and washed and received my sight." Contemplate this event. Put the case that the man was visually deprived from earliest infancy. Put the case that he had congenital cataracts or glaucoma or trachoma or optic nerve hypoplasia. Put the case that normal anatomy of the eye was restored. Now put the case most astounding. Visual cortex circuits, deformed by deprivation, were washed clean. Teleport 2,000 years forward to your clinic. You encounter a 12-month-old with a right eye congenital cataract. Your heart sinks because you know at this age, despite your skillful 25-gauge lensectomy, vitrectomy, IOL implantation, monocular deprivation, MD amblyopia, has condemned the eye to an acuity in the range of legal blindness. Or you encounter a 1-month-old with a cataract. You operate within a week. You could be a hero. You have the baby fitted with a SilSoft contact lens. You implement patching therapy. You recall the promising early case reports of Craig Hoyt. You're buoyed by the landmark Eileen Birch and David Steger study. Restoring optical clarity by 6 weeks of age can produce good visual acuity, as substantiated by their bilinear plot of acuity outcomes at age 5 years, with a downward deflection for those operated on after age 6 weeks. But then reality hits. Most babies with congenital cataracts don't present at age 1 month. If we can operate by 3 to 5 months of age, good adherence to contact lens wear and patching therapy is achieved in only 50%. Beyond that age, non-adherence climbs systematically. But you say, wait, what about the infant aphakia treatment study of Scott Lambert and Associates? A superb team of surgeon co-investigators, a prospective treatment protocol, a select group of highly motivated parents, frequent phone call monitoring and coaching of the families. And the outcome? A median acuity of 0.9 logmar, 2160. MD amblyopia is a Mount Everest no one has conquered. Mike Repko, one of the founding fathers of PEDIG, tacitly acknowledged our failure. The outcomes are overall poor, so exclude them. Amblyopia, blunt vision, is subnormal acuity due to early abnormal visual experience. 2 developmental anomalies account for amblyopia: optical degradation of the retinal image and/or strabismus. Hyperacuity is vision sharper than the spacing of retinal cones. Normal hyperacuity is achieved by sophisticated processing in the visual cortex. Spatial interference crowding effects are deficits of hyperacuity processing. They're brain damage. A study by Suzanne McKee, Dennis Levi, and Tony Movshan established 2 psychophysical factors that distinguish amblyopes. Factor 1 is acuity, plotted on the x-axis, and factor 2 is contrast sensitivity, plotted on the y-axis. The zero intersectional point at the center of the graph is the mean for all 427 amblyopes they tested. The marriage of the 2 eyes in normal binocular fusion requires each partner to sacrifice some sensitivity. So the normal controls at the right side of the graph have high acuity, but mean sensitivity. The strabismic amblyopes have low acuity and higher sensitivity. The deprivation amblyopes in the lower left quadrant score poorly on both factors, which is what distinguishes deprivation amblyopia and makes it so daunting. Piling poor contrast sensitivity on top of lost hyperacuity. Discouraging. Very discouraging. And then something fortuitous. I was invited to participate in a neuroscience conference devoted to amblyopia run by the Lasker Foundation, along with David Hunter, Jonathan Holmes, Craig Hoyt, and other APOS colleagues. In discussions, 2 participants revealed new results that startled me. Mark Baer at MIT and Kevin Duffy at Dalhousie University were investigating an injectable neurotoxin, tetrodotoxin, or shorthand TTX. TTX eliminates transiently all retinal ganglion cell activity. Deprivation was imposed in mice by Mark Baer and kittens by Kevin Duffy by suturing one eye shut at the peak of the critical period and for several weeks beyond. The sutured eye was then opened, and several more weeks elapsed to entrench the amblyopia. TTX was then injected into the dominant eye, analogous to eye patching, but with an important difference. Patching reduces retinal activity. TTX eliminates activity. Total darkness, neuronal silence. Square wave grading visual acuity was measured using visual evoked potentials. Normal eye responses were robust. MDI responses were nil. The arrow at the right graph denotes the baseline response of the MDI at the time of TTX injection into the normal eye. Over the ensuing week, responses in the MDI returned to normal, and the cure endured in mouse and kitten. My response on hearing these results was pharisaical, extreme skepticism. That can't possibly be the same kitten. And the data said, I am the kitten. I was born blind in one eye, but now I see. But was this dismissible as some peculiar difference between species? Flattened maps of the visual cortex unfolded are shown here. The black and white stripes and dots are labeled right eye and left eye ocular dominance columns. Area V1 size and visual acuity in mouse and kitten are 3% and 20% respectively that of human. Mouse and kitten lack a fovea. It's foveal vision that distinguishes amblyopia in primates. So I said to Mark and Kevin, we need to test TTX in macaque monkeys. And with the help of my trusty research assistant, Paul Fuller, I injected TTX into one eye in two normal macaques, producing an amaurotic afferent pupillary defect, elimination of all optokinetic eye movements, and silence of the VEP for a period of 2 days. And all functions returned to normal within a week. So the next task was to test TTX in amblyopic primates. And for logistical reasons I won't bore you with, in 2022, the best place to obtain newborn monkeys was a breeding facility in Bastrop, Texas, a half-hour's drive due east of us here. So I phoned Valab Das at the University of Houston, a very talented visual neuroscientist, to persuade him to join our effort, and we could perform the next set of experiments in Houston. We fitted 2 newborn monkeys with light perception density band girder foil over one eye, replicating a dense unilateral congenital cataract. The protocol timeline is shown here. Deprivation was imposed in the non-human primate before and for weeks after the critical period for acuity development. 1 week of monkey visual development is the equivalent of 1 month in human. At 4 weeks, the foil was removed, restoring optical clarity, analogous to lensectomy, vitrectomy, contact lens fitting in a 4-month-old baby. And then another 6 weeks elapsed to entrench the amblyopia. So at the rightmost pair of eyes in this figure, we're at the equivalent of a 10-month-old baby with no adherence to patching. Square wave grading, visual acuity was measured by visual evoked potential. The amplitude of the response at each spatial frequency was used to calculate an ocular dominance index, or ODI. The zero horizontal line in the figure indicates equal equality in the two eyes. Negative ODI values are worse acuity in the deprived eye with the poorest acuity at 4 cycles per degree. Contrast sensitivity in human and monkey peaks for visual stimuli at a spatial frequency of 4 cycles per degree. So a 4 cycle per degree stimulus is a useful probe for assessing amblyopia repair. 1 week after TTX injection into the dominant eye, acuity in the deprived eyes increased an average 65%, extrapolating to human an improvement from 2160 to 2040. How is this possible? The results imply a restoration of neural plasticity. The brake on plasticity is released. We don't currently understand the molecular mechanism responsible for releasing the brake. Mark Barrett, MIT, and Takeo Hench at Harvard are working in MD mice to reveal that mechanism. The phenomenon is termed metaplasticity. The Greek prefix meta means after or beyond. Metaplasticity is rewiring of the visual cortex after or beyond the critical period. A photomicrograph from my lab of a neuron within the ocular dominance column of a macaque monkey with strabismic amblyopia, as imaged by Andreas Burkhalter, my colleague and collaborator in the Department of Neuroscience. The neuron is surrounded by a plethora of inhibitory synaptic Bouton connections, labeled in red at each arrow. All pyramidal neurons have a mixture of excitatory and inhibitory connections, as depicted in the normal eye column. Neurons in amblyopic eye columns have a disproportionate abundance of inhibitory connections. The TTX results imply that this imbalance is fixable. Severe monocular deprivation amblyopia was imposed. It entrenched for the equivalent of 10 months without patching. A low dose of TTX was injected, and vision improved markedly. OCT, ERG, VEP, and histologic examination of the monkey retina revealed no damage to the injected eye. Many questions remain unanswered. What is the optimum dosage? How many injections should be performed? How long after the critical period do we have to rescue acuity? Statistical analysis tells us it will require 4 years and 32 animals to generate the answers. If successful, then a clinical trial in children. Teleport back to the 1st century AD. Jerusalem, south of the Temple Mount. A substance is pushed in to the blind man's eyes. It makes his darkness worse. He's sent to wash in the pool of Siloam, in the washing away of that worse darkness, his sight is restored. Thank you.
Well, we're certainly off to a stellar start because that was a fabulous presentation. Thank you very much. And in honor, we'd like to give this to you on behalf of APOS. Thank you for the fabulous presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Here, you have to stop for one second. Oh, Dr. Tychsen, all right to see you.
Thank you first to APOS and the Costenbader Society for the honor of being able to deliver this lecture. And then to my deceased saintly parents who gave me the gift of faith and 8 wonderful sisters, and who chose my wife. And my children and grandchildren, not least my wonderful colleagues at WashU St. Louis Children's Hospital, Greg Leader, Susan Cullican, Margaret Reynolds, Andrew Lee, all of the fellows that I've been privileged to train, and our wonderful hospital and clinic staff of nurses and managers could not do it without you.